Hey folks, so I've been writing Final Fantasy XIV Bard performance music for nearly a couple of years now, and sometimes people ask me, hey Preston, how do you write your music? Like, how do you choose a song? What do you think about when you're writing, and how do you make the music sound good? Recently, I completed my 200th Bard arrangement, and this seemed like a great time to try out making a video to describe my Bard performance writing process. In this video, I'll be talking about how I go about choosing a song and source material for the song, choosing instruments, and then diving a little deeper into my writing process and some of the techniques that I use to create a clean and engaging Bard performance sound. This video is in 4 short sections: choosing a song, preparing to write, writing a first draft, polishing and finishing a song. I'm going to explore this by writing a new arrangement, and I'll put the full finished version at the end of this video. So if there's a section that you're more interested in, or you just want to listen to the music, you can go ahead and jump to that part of the video. So before we dive in, this is a video about my writing process. I know a lot of bards who, instead of writing a song from scratch, they edit and polish pre-existing MIDI files so that they're suitable for bard performance. This is a completely valid approach, and I've heard some great music from bards that do this. So this video is not about telling you to stop that approach, but hopefully you'll find some useful ideas that you can apply to your own writing. Also, my process heavily involves transcribing and arranging music by ear, and this just might not work for you. You might not know how to read and write musical notation, or you may struggle with being able to pick out a single instrument when you're listening to recording. In this video, I'm not going to cover anything about music theory or listening skills, and I'll try to avoid using technical music terminology in general, but instead I'll provide some tips that you can try out regardless of what skills you're bringing into your writing. And finally, if you don't write bard performance music, but maybe you like listening to bard performances and you're just curious about what's involved, or maybe you're thinking about writing for bard performance but not sure if you want to take the plunge, I hope you'll find this an interesting window into the things that go on before a bard even steps onto the stage. With all of that said, let's jump in. When I choose a song, there's a bunch of questions I like to think through before I commit to writing a song, so that I can make sure I'm spending my music time as efficiently and effectively as I can. First, I'll check my current song list, as I like to keep a balance of genres and time periods in my list, so that I have a good mix to draw from when selecting a set list. I'll check for where I have fewer songs in a category, or maybe for a style of music that I haven't written for a while, and I want some fresh material to include in my next performances. I also like to have a song list that has a mix of well-known and less popular songs, and this will usually help me build a set list that feels varied and interesting. And it's going to help me create some ebb and flow between music which is going to be recognizable to a lot of people versus songs that people might not know but might be interested in exploring because they heard my version of it during a performance. Personally, I have a background in data analysis, so I maintain a database of songs that I analyze using a bunch of different metrics. But you might prefer to have just a simple list of songs grouped by genre if you want to consider these points. There are 3 more questions that are really important for me to think about, and these are: do I like a song enough to spend time with it? On average, a simple song might take 3 or 4 hours to write, and more complex songs can take a lot longer than that. So if I just don't like a song enough to spend time with it, or maybe I like the song but right now I want to spend time working with music in a different style, then I'll put the song on my wait list and I'll look for something that I want to commit to right now. Can I imagine performing the song? So this comes down to whether or not I can imagine including a set list and where would I put it in the list. Maybe I'm looking for some new openers or songs that have a different level of emotional intensity. I think about where I would be likely to place a song in a set list, and if I can't imagine putting it into a set list at all, or I'm looking for music for a different part of a set list, I'll probably keep looking until I find something that's more suitable. Also, a song may be great on its own, but it might not blend well with the rest of my songs. Maybe because it's too different a genre and would feel out of place, or I can't imagine what I would play before or after the song. And finally, I check if I've heard another bard perform this song, and if I have, whether I think I would write the song any differently. Since writing a song is going to take up a big chunk of time for me, I like to focus my time on creating music which is in some way unique and distinctive, to help give me and the band our own identity and value in the bard performance community. So when choosing a song to write for this video, I decided I wanted some more anime music, and I wanted something that would be pretty recognizable. I found a song request that has been on my waitlist for a while, and listened to it a couple of times with my selection questions in mind. The song is called This Game, and it's the opening theme to the anime No Game No Life. It's got a great hooky melody with lots of energy, and it has pop, rock, and metal elements to it that I know my typical audience would enjoy. It could really go anywhere in a set list where I want a high energy number, and it's going to blend really well with a lot of my other songs. I also haven't heard it played by other bards before, so there's a good chance that I'll be able to create something unique for my band to perform. So now that I've chosen a song, I'm going to spend a little time researching the song before I get into the actual writing. First, I'm going to see if there are different recordings of the song and choose which one I'm going to use for my rendition. I found a short version which was used for the intro sequence to the actual anime, and also a full version of the song which isn't edited down to fit the timing that the anime needs. I also found a couple of piano-only versions of the song that I could potentially use as my source material. For my version of the song, I decided I wanted to use a full-length version, as this is going to fit better with the rest of my songs, which are usually edited down or up to a typical radio broadcast length, so between 3 to 5 minutes. When listening to the piano versions of the song, I considered whether I wanted to emulate one of these reduced versions, or even take a more orchestration approach and expand the music into a different ensemble from that piano version. For this video, I decided I wanted a version which was close to the original song, so more of a rock band setup, as this is more typical of my writing process and would give me a song that would still work well as a high energy song in a set list. You can find links to the sources I found below if you want to check these out for yourself. Now that I've chosen the video I want to write from, I'm going to listen to the song a couple more times to orient myself to the song and make a few more decisions before I start writing. First, I'll think about what instruments I'm going to use to write the song, and I'll do this based on the instruments I can hear in the source material, what range and sound qualities are being used for each of these instruments, and how prominent they are in the overall sound and different sections of the song. This is going to help me choose which bard instruments would be most suitable for my rendition and prioritize choosing these instruments, as usually I will have to choose a smaller number of instruments in my rendition than in the original because of the Final Fantasy XIV party limitations and limitations on bard performance sync. I'll show you the notes I took on screen when making my selection, and you can pause the video if you want to read through the detail. Once I'm done choosing the instruments, I'm going to consider the overall range of these instruments. How high or low am I going to be able to write, and are there any gaps in the middle of that range? I'll compare that to the original song, and if I think my selection is going to restrict me from textures or musical ranges that are important to the song, I'll review my selection and see if there's a more suitable combination of instruments. In the worst case scenario, where I can't find a good solution, this might even mean that I have to park the song and revisit it at a later date, to see if I can think of how to work around those limitations. I may even decide to take the song off my waiting list completely, because there's too much in the original that would be missing. Also, a lot of these notes are something I just keep in my head as I'm listening. I don't really write anything down, other than which instruments I'm going to use. I'll then do a final listen to roughly plot out the structure of the song, as this will help me keep track of where I am in the song when I'm writing, and I'll check what key the song is in and the tempo of the song. I usually do a Google search for the title of the song with the word BPM added, and then double check that the information I found is correct using an online metronome. So now I'm finally ready to start writing my first draft. By this point, I've probably spent anything between around 15 minutes to an hour doing just enough preparation to make sure that it's worth committing to the rest of the writing process. Sometimes I'll spend a little longer in this phase and do some additional music research. For example, if it's a style or artist I'm less familiar with and I want to get a little more background on what is significant about this music, or I want to get a better feel for the genre. This will help me when I'm writing, to be able to recognize and write out common patterns and techniques and avoid having to work note by note. For this song, I'm pretty comfortable with the genre, even if I don't know the actual anime, so I'm ready to get started. So for this section of the video, I'm going to give you a general idea of how I approach transcribing from a recording, rather than go into a step-by-step review of what I did for this song. This is because A, the actual process is really long. This song took me about 10 hours to write, and B, because a lot of the detail that went into transcribing this song isn't that useful when talking about bard writing in general. If you do have any questions about how I approached writing a particular part of this song, then go ahead and leave a question in the comments and I'll do my best to explain what I did. So my overall approach to writing music is to go section by section from beginning to end, and within each section go instrument by instrument, starting from the bass drum and working upwards through the percussion instruments, then rhythm section, then supporting instruments, and then finally the vocals. This usually makes it easier for me to make sure I'm creating the overall feel of the song through the rhythm section before getting caught in the detail of writing the more melodic elements. There are a couple of exceptions to this order which are worth calling out. First, when writing backing vocals, I'll usually write this straight after I write the lead vocals line, since this will normally make more sense once I can see what the lead melody is, and also I can often copy paste the lead vocal part and then just adjust the whole line according to whether the harmony is a third above or below the main melody line, for example. Second, when writing for piano or guitar music, so the bard equivalent here is usually electric guitar, lute, harp and piano, if they are used as rhythm section instruments and not as single note melody instruments, I'll usually write for these instruments last, as it means I can check how much overall texture is missing without these instruments and what notes in the harmony are already written in another part. This means that I'll avoid accidentally doubling notes which are already played elsewhere, which can give chords an unbalanced sound, but also because I'll usually limit myself to 2 or maybe 3 notes in these these instruments to avoid the delay caused by the limitation on polyphony, so I'll need to prioritize any missing notes and only create additional texture where it's needed. Another technique that I use when writing for rhythm section instruments, I usually outline the bass, then the top of the harmony, and then work out what notes are likely to be in the middle, based on my understanding of what chord is being played. I find this is faster than trying to work out every chord in full from the start to the end of a section. So for this song, my actual order of writing was section by section, bass drum, snare, cymbal, double bass, electric guitar, saxophone, flute, and finally harp. Once I'm done writing the instrument part for any particular section, I'll then have the band play the music in Final Fantasy XIV to check for any issues before moving on to the next instrument. Here's a couple of examples of challenges I encountered when writing the music for this song. First, I wanted to retain as much of the original drum part as possible, because this creates a lot of energy throughout the song. However, this really slowed down the notation process, as the part had a lot of variation in each bar, with very few repeated patterns between the bars. I often had to transcribe the music note by note while mentally separating out the three elements of bass drum, toms, and snare. Another challenge was keeping a good balance in the harp part between agility for the fast runs versus filling the middle of the texture. So this required a lot of attention to detail to capture the runs correctly and also to create 2 or 3 note chords without overloading the part and ending up with something middle heavy or with too much sound delay in the overall performance. Usually I aim for a first draft which is about 90% correct. This means that writing my second draft is a little more of a holistic review, and I don't need to get too caught up in the detail by having to re-examine everything note by note. At this point of my process, I'll also switch to evaluating how well my rendition stands on its own, and only refer back to the original version if I think I wrote something incorrectly or I need to add more material from the original to fill a gap in the texture. I'll have the band play my first draft a couple of times, and I'll just highlight my score where I think I need to examine something in more detail. Then I'll go straight to each highlight and think about how I can improve the sound. Usually, the kinds of improvements I'll make at this point are minor fixes where I didn't transcribe something accurately, amending writing in earlier sections in the song where I didn't realize a pattern or phrase until later in the song, evening out the overall texture where I haven't been consistent in my writing, or removing notes where the overall sound is too muddy or dense, looking for opportunities to add notes for emphasis like octave doubling or adding harmonies even if they aren't in the original. I'll also do some visual cleanup of the score so that it's easy to read if I want to edit the song again in future. So I hope you found this video interesting and that you found some ideas that you can try out for your own bard performance writing. If you have any questions or maybe you want to share your own tips, then please leave a comment below. Here's the final version of the song. I hope you enjoy it and looking forward to seeing you in Eorzea soon.